Worksharing Introduction to Using Worksharing. Okay, let's pick up where we left off. So as a local user, I'm going to click on Open Projects, and I'm going to go to find my local file. Now, usually at the beginning of each day, a user should open the central, and then it will automatically create a new local file. Now, I want to confirm on this particular version of Revit that I have opened, the background version. I'm going to go to Options and then File Locations. I want to make sure that my default path for user files is right there in my student file, RAC 2012 intermediate folder. Just say OK and OK. And now I'm going to click on Open. Browse to that folder and find that central file we made. So that was 2301 complete. And it's going to ask me to create a new local. Great, that's what I want to do. So it's going to create another new local. Every day you're going to open this and it's just going to overwrite your local every time, because the central file is really where all of the latest information is happening. Okay, my other user does the same thing. Open. Okay, finds the central file, which is 2301 complete. It's going to create a new local, and then it's going to overwrite the local file. Great. Okay, so what's the point behind all this? Well, the point is, remember the walkthrough, how long it would take to render that? Well, what if I still needed to work on the project, like do some setup on the sheets? You would need 2 versions of the file open, because walkthrough will just totally take over your Revit. Let's go over to the other one. On this one right here, I could go to my walkthrough and I could export it here. Before we get to that though, let's just play around with Worksharing a little bit. And if I go to, let's say, 3D View, 3D Show Complete. Okay, there it is. And let's go over to this one here. This is my first user, and I'll go to that exact same view. So 3D Show Complete. Okay, just spin that around. So what if I want to work on this floor? So I click on the floor, and I'm going to click on Edit Boundary. Okay, so this user is working away on the floor. What happens if the other user wants to do that? Well, they're going to click on the floor, and it's going to have this little box that pops up, and it says, basically, someone's working on that. Well, I want to move it, so I'm just going to move it. Nope. It's going to give you a little error, and it's saying J. Polding needs to give you permission, essentially, to work on that. Okay, so let's say J. Polding finishes editing. Okay, say no to that, and away we go. Okay, flip over here. Now can I work on it? Nope, still no. No, it's telling me you can't edit the element until J. Polding resaves to central, so that's synchronizing, and relinquishes it, and you reload latest. A lot of terminology there that we need to get over. So let's start with J. Polding. That's this user. So I have not yet saved this change to the central. So I'm going to synchronize. I'm going to click on this little button here. You can also go to Collaborate, Synchronize with Central, and then say OK. When I do this, it's going to save my changes to the central file, then save this local file, and OK. Okay, so now this user over here. Now can I do it? Well, I'm going to click on it and try to move it again. No. So we're still missing a step here. So let's go to Collaborate, and let's try this thing called Reload Latest. So when we reload latest, notice what happened? The floor adjusted. Now if I click on this, let's say I want to edit it, I could maybe try clicking on that little icon. Still, it's not letting me. So the J. Polding user, white background, what this user is going to do is relinquish. So you can relinquish control. What happens is you have a username. So there's your username. And every object has an element ID. So it attaches those 2 pieces of information together and says, sorry, that username, that element ID, locked. But if I click on relinquish, now I'm going to flip over to my black background user. Now, when this person reloads latest, see what I could do? I could just click on that little icon, and now I can edit it. So now they edit the boundary, and they've decided that they want to put circular cutout on there. Okay, so they want to split that. They want to do some trimming. Okay, no problem. Finish. Okay, and then we save. Okay, let's go back over to the white background user. Okay, reload latest, nothing new. Okay, flip back to black background user. What do we need to do to get that change over to the other person? Synchronize. Okay, flip over to white background user, synchronize. Okay, and there it is. Okay, so that's in a nutshell how it works. And now that you have it set up and you've seen it working, you can play with it. Again, this is just an introduction to get you some feel for this. What about that rendering issue we were going to talk about? I'm going to go to the walkthrough. Now I'm going to just go to export and I'm going to go to images and animations walkthrough. And I could choose to go with rendering. Okay to that. Now you can see as I export it, the name is even different. So I'm going to say walkthrough, and maybe I'll just put on a rendered. Now if we click on options, you can always go back to that rendering setting. Okay. And then save. Choose how you want to compress it. Say okay, and then it's going to render it. Now this is going to take a long time, but if you'll notice, my other user, still free to work. So maybe I'll go into my sheets. And you know what? Now that I'm here, let's set this background back to white. Just invert the background. Here we go. Okay, so they can go through and just start working on these, refining them a little bit. Okay, looks like I've identified something in site plans that I need to do, so we'll adjust that as well. Okay, one last thing that I want to point out before we're done, and that is the save as issue. So if I click on save as, normally what happens when you do a save as, you save as, it separates this file, and you're done, right? So JPolding 2, okay, name it something else, it's its own file. With work sharing, that's not the case. You have to be very careful because it will always be connected to the central. Even if it's not on the same network, it'll think it's connected, it'll try to connect. So if you want to separate a file from the central, just click on options, and then you can click on this right here, make this a central model after save. It's not that anything else will be connected to it, it just will be its own small file after save. You say, okay, give it a new name, and that has separated it from the central file. Good, so I'm going to close hidden windows, synchronize with central, and close that down. Now the other Revit file, this is working kind of in the background. You can see it's just rendering each and every image of the 300. So we'll have to wait a while for that one.